have my boobs are up in case.
Try to find a restroom. I'll be stuck, pretty stuck.
And if you can't, that's okay. You'll have time to find them later. We also hope that you'll meet people you don't know tonight. So if you see someone looking lost, you
If you're in one of the municipalities and you don't see a sign for it, come up here, maybe I'll have you sign. don't need it, Joanne. Just a roll.
Who's up with Charlie's down there? Charlie's that's good.
Hey, Mom. How you doing? What are you doing? Oh, cool. Yeah, it's...
Springfield's in the back left corner. Back left corner. You got it? He's there?
You got your seat.
We'd like to get started, please, if everybody could take their seats. This is going to be tricky. See if we can do the panel. If everybody can hear me. This is going to be a test. Can people hear me through the mic, or do I? No. Okay. Right. So we're going to have to hold the mic like this because we want everybody to hear. So if you can't find a seat on that side, there are still some seats. It's hard for me to see up here with the lights, but there are definitely seats on the other side of the auditorium. I want to welcome everybody to this Yes We Can Part 2. My name's David Landau. I'm the chairman of the Democratic Party of Delaware County. As we meet here tonight, you wouldn't be here if you didn't know and understand that the cornerstone institutions of our democracy are under attack. And they're not under attack by some foreign power or outsiders. They're under attack by our own elected and appointed officials in Washington. So the stakes can't be any higher. And if we're going to step up and stop these attacks, it's really up to all of us in this room to start here and now to do that. It's not going to happen overnight, stopping. We're not going to be able to stop this overnight. It's going to take a while. In fact, it could take years as we try to change the shape and form and who is in our government. But we can build a political movement that will do that. And that political movement starts right here in Delaware County tonight. And we're going to talk tonight about how we can build that movement. And we're going to start out tonight. I'm going to be giving you a few minutes overview of both politics in Delaware County, how it relates to what's going on nationally. We're talking a little bit about I'm going to talk about a little bit about the organization of the Democratic Party and what we have going on here. Then we're going to move to a panel discussion about getting involved, led by Representative Leanne Kruger-Baneke and the other members of our panel who she'll introduce. We have Representative Margot Davidson here as well. After the panel, we've left plenty of time for questions and answers from the audience, and Leanne will explain how we're going to do that. And after that's over, we hope some of you can stay around. You know, we've tried to organize this by towns, but stay around and meet your local Democratic municipal leaders and other committee and your fellow Democrats who are here from the towns that you live in, so you get to know each other a little bit because we're all going to be working together. A couple of things I'm not going to talk about tonight. I'm not going to sit up here and berate Donald Trump because we're all here and we know. We know. So that's not going to happen here tonight. And we'll have plenty of opportunities, and we've had plenty of opportunities to protest. There's more protests coming up this weekend, so we're going to put that aside. The other thing we're not going to do is sort of debrief on what went wrong last November. I'm frankly a little tired of that, and beat up on, you know, that our national party, Democratic Party leadership failed us. Yes, it did, but we can move on from that also because we need to focus in on next steps at the local level. And I want to begin by talking about the fact that you can't change the Congress, and specifically you can't change our congressional delegation unless you change the government in Delaware County first. You can't change what's going on in Harrisburg with our State House and State Senate unless you change the government in Delaware County first. Now, why do I say that? Let me give you an example of the 7th Congressional District. Most of you know the congressman is Pat Meehan, and two-thirds of Delaware County is in Pat Meehan's district. You know, he sat there silent this week through the Muslim ban and a ban on immigration and on refugees. He voted for the first steps to dismantle the Affordable Care Act. It's one of the most gerrymandered districts in the country, covers about 5 counties. But before Pat Meehan got to Congress, and right after, he was a political operative and ran the campaigns of Rick Santorum. And the Republican Party in Delaware County liked what he did so much, they said, even though you have no prosecutorial experience, we're going to make you the district attorney. And so he was the district attorney of Delaware County before he was a congressman. That was his stepping stone. And one of his predecessors was Kurt Weldon. He was there before Joe Sestak. He was there for 20 years. He was on the Delaware County Council before he went to Congress. In our most recent election, we had an important state Senate election in Delaware County where Tom Killian was trying to succeed Dominic Pileggi. Before Tom Killian was a state representative and now a state senator, he was on the Delaware County Council, and before that he was a township commissioner. And I could go on and on and on about how these elected officials, when they end up in Washington, they end up in the state Senate, they have all served as borough council members, township commissioners, and on our county council. The second example of what we need to do about why Delaware County politics is important is redistricting itself. I think a lot of you know how gerrymandered these districts are after the last census, blocking Democrats from getting elected, blocking the true will of the populace from electing representatives who represent them. In Pennsylvania, redistricting is done on the state level by a redistricting commission, 9 members, 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, appointed by the leadership of the State House and State Senate. But the tie-breaking vote is appointed by the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. And at the time of the last census, that was a Republican-controlled court, and they appointed a judge named Steve McEwen to break the tie, and he adopted the Republican plan of redistricting. Before Steve McEwen, he was an appellate court judge on our Superior Court at the time. Before he was that, he sat on the Court of Common Pleas of Delaware County, and before that was the district attorney of Delaware County. So I think you get the picture about Delaware County and Republican politics. In a sense, in the county, we have 2 counties we live in. We have the county that gave Barack Obama in 2012 60% of the vote, and Hillary Clinton almost the same amount of vote. Hillary Clinton won this county by 66,000 votes. No statewide Republican who ran for office, Pat Toomey, Donald Trump, anybody running statewide got over 43% of the vote. We won for our Democratic candidates at the state level by double digits. And Donald Trump only got 37% of the vote in Delaware County. But yet, we have a county government. In the history of Delaware County, there has never been a popularly elected member who's a Democrat of our county council. Never. The last popularly elected Democrat in Delaware County was a person named Nathan Peachin, who became the sheriff for 2 years in 1934. This county, there's never been a Democrat on the bench, elected to the bench in Delaware County. We have 22 judges on the Common Pleas Court of Delaware County. None of them are Democrats. None of them. How's that possible? Well, this county has been controlled by a political machine since the Civil War. It's one of the most impressive, certainly, but one of the most powerful political machines in the country. They have a patronage system of thousands of people. We have more patronage jobs in media than they have in the city of Philadelphia. You can't even become an assistant district attorney unless you have the recommendation of your Republican committeeman. And district attorneys have to work the polls on election day. It is a system, and who are these people? These are people who, they work for the county, but they're borough council people, they're mayors, they're constables, they are school board members. And they run for these local offices, they have patronage jobs, they hand out the contracts to their supporters who give them political contributions, and it is this completely corrupt system which perpetuates itself year after year after year. And I could go on for hours about the stories about how this patronage system works and what it does. But we in Delaware County have made progress in the Democratic Party. We're sitting here today, whereas 20 years ago we were a 2-to-1 Republican registration county. We now have 180,000 Democrats and 164,000 Republicans. And slowly we're chipping away at it. There are many municipalities now that are in Democratic control and a number that are on the verge, 1 vote shy, and we have Democratic officials peppered throughout all of these local offices. But we need to do more, and we need to start there, and we need to start this year because this is the year the elections are happening. So we are going to be talking a little more about that in the panel. But I want to give you, just to conclude my opening remarks, by talking a little bit about the structure of the Democratic Party, because there is a structure to the Democratic Party. Many people don't realize that. It's not a bunch of people who just decide to come together. In fact, the committee people, who are your official Democratic representatives, we're all elected, actually. Every 4 years, you may not even know this, every 4 years in the gubernatorial primary, 2 Democratic committee people from each precinct are elected. It's all the way at the bottom of the ballot. And in many precincts, frankly, we don't have anybody running for committee. We have about 550 committee people, maybe 525 committee people out of about over 800 slots. There are over 400 precincts in Delaware County. That committee gets elected, and it meets as a whole and elects every 4 years a chair. This is my second term. And then those committees go back and they elect all of their municipal chairs, chair of Radnor, chair of Chester, chair of all the different towns. And we have committees in all of the towns. Sometimes they're joint committees with other towns in the smaller municipalities. Sometimes they are their own freestanding committees. And that's your committee. But we have gone farther in the county to be a little bit more inclusive. So unlike most counties, we've created something called at-large committee. Now, they're not elected, but we in the committee appoint, each committee has a certain number, and they can appoint more committee people, so we have more people involved officially, and they get to vote on endorsements and all the other kinds of things that committee people do. But there's plenty of opportunity to get involved in this structure. And this committee is the committee that's responsible for making sure we have the polling places staffed, and that there's sample ballots out there, and that they're recruiting candidates, and the candidates get on the ballot, and their petitions are filled out correctly. All of those kinds of functions are done by committee. And that's who we are. We'll get into a little bit more detail later, but now I'm going to turn the program over to the representative from the 161st Legislative District, the district we actually are sitting in right now, who, in a remarkable special election in the summer of August of 2015, defied all the odds and got elected in this district and was just recently re-elected last November. Leanne Kruger-Brown.
Thank you, David, and hi, everybody. I asked if I could stand up because it's hard for me to sit and to speak, but I've been told that we're taping this because there were so many people who wanted to join us this evening. They could not all fit in the 600-seat auditorium, which means very exciting. But it also means that those of us who are speaking are going to be required to sit at our seats. So we want to start with some connection. I know that there's folks in this room sitting in these seats who've been working to elect Democrats in Delaware County for 30 years. And I also know that there are probably folks here who never thought about politics until they got on a bus for the March on Washington a couple weeks ago. How many of you marched, either in Philadelphia or in Washington? How many of you now own a pink hat? I do too. And so I want to take a minute before we get started with our program to have you turn to the person next to you, introduce yourself, and tell them, why did you come tonight? You've got 1 minute. Go. Okay, and that's 1 minute, so the other person should be talking now. Switch people. Why did you come? next to you, can you put your hand up? Okay, folks who are standing in the back, keep your hand up until someone comes and takes that seat next to you. There's an empty seat, keep your hand up. Folks who are looking for seats, we'll give you a minute to find those seats. And everybody should be writing down on your Post-it note why you came. And just hold on to that until the end of our panel. Hands up if you need Post-its. Shelley and some of our other volunteers are going to circulate with those. You'll need another one for the end. Colleen's got Post-it notes too. Okay, folks, now we're going to go ahead and get started with the rest of our panel. As David said, my name is Leanne Kruger-Brannicky, and for the past year and a half, I've represented the 161st District here in Delaware County. I know that there's folks from all parts of my district, so I am seeing those signs, proud to see them here tonight. I represent Aston Township, Brookhaven, Nether Township, half of Ridley Township, Rutledge, Rose Valley, Swarthmore, and one tiny part of Springfield. And I am so excited to be with you here this evening. My office, my legislative office, my campaign office, our phones have been ringing off the hook since Election Day with people who want to know how to get involved. At the legislative office, we're getting calls from constituents who care about issues that they're seeing move at the federal level or issues they know are coming up to hit us in Harrisburg. And at the Delaware County Democratic Party headquarters in media, the phone has rung off the hook with people who want to get involved. So we came together to plan this presentation this evening, and this is just the first step, folks. Our goal this evening is to give you a lay of the land, to give you a place to plug in, to connect you with the volunteers who've been working right in your own community, some of them for years, and to have everybody identify tangible next steps before you leave tonight. So that's what our goal is this evening. And I have to say, I'm incredibly proud to be sharing the stage with two other women who also flipped Republican seats. State Representative Margot Davidson and Upper Darby School Board Director Heather Boyd. As well as two men who are incredibly committed to helping elect Democrats up and down the ballot here in Delaware County. County Party Chairman David Landau and political strategist Joe Corrigan. So we're going to try to keep this evening as interactive as possible, but there are over 600 of us packed into this room. So we're going to do as much as we can in a big group like this. We're going to open with Margot Davidson talking about how she got involved, and I'm going to be moderating, so I'm going to be keeping folks to time. I'll give you a finger when there's 1 minute left. And we'll go right from Margot to Heather. I love moderating, by the way, folks. As a rank and file member who sits through 203 colleagues who talk a lot, it's great to be able to keep people to time. And then Heather Boyd will talk about her experience running for office and balancing the work and life and family and the challenges that we often hear from women who are thinking about getting involved. David Landau is going to tell us what's up this year, very important 2017 elections coming. And then Joe Corrigan's going to share some thoughts on campaign strategy. And at that point, we're going to go to questions. And we're going to keep as much of our time this evening, both to questions to the audience that we got ahead of time and also questions that you're going to submit. So you should have gotten a note card, I believe, when you sat down. If not, we've got volunteers who can rove. If you have a question for a panelist, write it down on a note card. There's too many of us here tonight to pass a microphone along, but we've got volunteers who will be going up and down the aisle. So if you've got a question, write it down, hold your hand up in the air, and one of our volunteers will. So Margot, why don't you start by telling us, how did you get involved in the local committee, and how did you flip a Republican seat?
Well, I got involved, actually, usually I don't need a mic because I was trained in community theater as a child. But I got involved in local politics here in Delaware County after spending about a year working on the Barack Obama campaign. I traveled to 4 different states, mostly on my own dime. I went as far as Montana to make sure that Barack Obama became our president. And that was during the primary season. I worked in North Carolina for a short time during the general election, and then I needed to come home. I had been away from home for quite some time, came back to Pennsylvania, to Delaware County, and became involved in the Obama campaign at that point as well. After which, I connected to the Democratic Party here in Delaware County, and had some ideas about how the party could become more of a winning party here in Delaware County. I saw how the Republicans seemed to control everything. And so I connected with folks, and I was really working on other campaigns. I was working on a state senate campaign. I was working on a lieutenant governor campaign, doing communications and strategy. And then the seat became open in the 164th. Mario Severa, who was the Republican legislator, was resigning. Although he didn't resign, he held 2 seats for a period of time, both county council and state representative. And then he finally resigned when it was advantageous. He had already set up everything he needed to set up for who he thought was going to be his successor. He had already made all the calls. He had already sewed up as much money as he could from all the stakeholders. And then the person that I was supporting for the seat dropped out. And he called me. He said, well, why don't you run? And I said, well, this is your dream. I was supporting you. And at that point, there was no one that would step up. And I thought that it was important. And I went to a state committee meeting for the Democratic Party and was surrounded by party leaders who said, you have to do it. I said, can't you find anyone else? I'm new here. And they said, no, you have to step up. And so I talked to a number of my advisors, found out if my husband would still stay with me if I did this. And he agreed, and I was happy because I knew I would need him in those tough moments. And there were a lot of them. And so I decided to go ahead and run. And then, most folks, and it wasn't a whole lot of committee people, but most folks got really involved in the congressional race, and I felt really alone at that point. But it really was an experience of trying to engage folks who really did not believe that a Democrat could win the seat. There was no elected Democrat at that time in 2010 anywhere in Upper Darby. Not on school board, not on council, not state rep, not state senate, not Congress, no one. And there I stepped into the void. And it was tough going, but I prevailed by a wide margin. And I did it the old-fashioned way. I didn't really have a lot of money. It was my 4 boys and my husband just knocked on doors like nobody's business every single day. We were out there. We knocked on about 10,000 doors as a family, and we had no money. So we actually wrote. I wrote all my own literature. I copied and pasted my picture on it. I photocopied it at the county office. That was the only literature I had for the doors. And that's what I handed out. And the state party didn't come on board until September. And at that point, they said, we're going to do a poll, but we don't think you really have a shot either. I said, okay. He said, well, can you find the money to do the poll? It was $10,000. I had $2,000 in my campaign account. I was going to give that up, and Dwight Evans, who's now a congressman, State Representative Dwight Evans, gave me the money for my poll. Well, they got excited when they got my poll back. So all that door knocking did pay off, and I was told I had the best poll numbers in the state, and they were going to support me in running for the office, and we took off from there.
Sometimes we need to step up when there's no one else to step up. That's what I heard from you, Margot. Heather, tell us the story of running for at-large school board in Upper Darby and flipping a seat.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name's Heather Boyd, and I sit on the Upper Darby School Board. I won that seat in 2015. I was the only Democrat to win that election. We ran whole slate of school board members, township council, and I was the only one to win out of that whole seat. Working in Upper Darby is wonderful and challenging at the same time. It's the largest municipality in the county, and it's the largest school district in the county, and we run at large, which means that I have to try to talk to 85,000 people in order to win my seat. I did not talk to 85,000 people, but I was able to get almost 7,000 votes in Upper Darby, which I'm pretty proud of. I got involved in the Upper Darby Democrats in about 2011, and I was mostly at the time, maybe like some of you, really only paying attention to federal elections. And I had seen Joe Sestak come, and I was excited about that, and then 2010 happened, and I was disappointed about that. And then I decided that I wanted to spend some time just learning about the process. And I happened to have run into the gentleman to my left, Joe Corrigan, at a party where we were talking about women running for office. And Joe's first, I think, question to me was, when are you going to run for office? And I was like, wait, I just want to get involved. I just want to knock a door or something. So I joined the committee. I joined the Upper Darby Democratic Committee. And I was appointed because I came in on the off election. It wasn't the election for the committee. And I learned that the committee member's job is really just to go talk to Democrats in my precinct. And I started doing that. I would just go door to door. And if that's something that you're interested in, the Delaware County Democrats or your local Democratic committee can get you a list of the Democrats who live in your neighborhood. And I went and just knocked on their door. Hi, I'm your new committee person. If you have any questions about the Democratic Party, here's my phone number and my email address. And then I would go a couple times a year to tell them about who was running as a Democrat. I did this every year for 2 years or so, and I would stand out front of my polling place and greet everybody and ask them to vote for the slate. And then the next year I came around and our poll started to see more and more and more Democrats. It was leaning Republican when I started. It is solid Democrat now. And when I go to doors, people say to me, I didn't used to feel comfortable coming to vote. I didn't vote because I didn't want to run the gauntlet of the Republicans who were standing out front. Those 5 guys in suits made me feel uncomfortable. And just you coming to my door and just you standing out front of the poll made it so that I felt comfortable coming to vote. And now my precinct is wholly Democrat. So the moral of that anecdote for me is just, we haven't had a lot of people move in and out of my community. It's just that when you talk to your neighbors, a lot of people here in Delaware County have been told you can't get your trash picked up if you're a registered Democrat. You can't, get a job or anything like that. And it's made people feel very intimidated. And just your presence, just you telling them who's on the ballot, just you making it comfortable for them to come and vote can make a huge difference. And it's made a huge difference in my precinct, and it's changing in Upper Darby across the board.
Thank you, Heather. How many folks have ever felt intimidated on Election Day as Democrats? Okay. How many folks have seen those gauntlets that Heather mentioned? Yeah. I have too, particularly in Ridley Township and Aston Township. You feel it every election day. David Landa, tell us what's up for 2017 and what we need to know, the importance of local elections this year.
I will do that, but before I do that, I have to just say one thing. I've been doing this a long time, and as chairman, I've hosted a lot of meetings, and we have a lot of meetings in this auditorium where we have our county conventions of about 250 people. This is clearly the largest crowd we've ever assembled for a Democratic Party meeting. And as Joe and I were fretting about it, what are we going to do with all these people? We have all these people now. It's like it's a great problem to have. Now we have to figure out how to do it. So what's happening this year? What's happening this year we have races at the top of the ticket, which will be for Supreme Court, Superior Court, Commonwealth Court. But in Delaware County, we have 5 members on our county council. We have a home rule charter in the county. And unlike all the surrounding counties, we do not have a guaranteed minority commissioner. We're the only county in the state that doesn't. All the other counties have that, except for Delaware County. So we have 5 county council people. 2 are up this time. That's the first thing. We have what we call our row offices up at the county. We have sheriff, register of wills, and county controller. And we have 1 seat on the Court of Common Pleas of Delaware County up. Around the county, we have township commissioner races, we have borough council races, we have mayor races, we have school board races, we have magisterial district judge races. All these races across the county, but the ones I want to focus on are something that everybody in this room can do because we can work. Our county committees are recruiting people. Sometimes we have gaps in our recruitment right now. We're looking for candidates. Other places have some candidates because we recruit all year round and there are opportunities there. But when we talk about the gauntlet, there's something else we want to talk about. Did you ever wonder when you walk in the polling place and you see the people sitting at the table checking you in, how they got there? They're elected. The judge of elections is elected. The inspector of elections is elected. And those elections are this year. And there are still too many election boards in Delaware County where we don't have any Democrats sitting on those election boards. Talk about voter suppression. You talk about voter intimidation. That is the most important position we have to prevent that in the county. Because when we have people sitting in that polling place, working all day, it dramatically reduces the opportunity for shenanigans in the polling place. I'm not talking about touching the machines. I'm talking about actual intimidation when you walk in the polls, because I'm sure if you've experienced outside the polls, you've experienced it inside the polls. And you've seen people campaigning in the polling places and talking to voters in the polling places. Now, we put poll watchers out there, and we have a great legal team. We had over 200 lawyers out there on Election Day. But the first line of defense are these judges and inspectors of election. And that's an opportunity for you to run. It's not very hard. It only involves 2 days a year. You have to sit there from 6:30 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. But that's a very important thing that's happening this time. And you do get paid for it by the county. $75? Yeah. $90. There you go. $90 for the day. So that's another thing. We also have other things, opportunities for all the candidates who are running. We have so this whole process starts on February 14th this year. It's not easy to get on the ballot. It sounds easy, you have to get a petition with 10 signatures, but our petition rules are very precise, and they're not designed to be user-friendly for people running for office. And you have to file statements of financial interest, and our committees are well-versed in those rules, but we need help circulating those petitions. All the candidates need help. Getting candidates on the ballot, it's very important. That period runs from February 14th to March 7th. And then there are many, many other aspects that you can get involved in these campaigns, whether it's spending a couple hours a week knocking on doors or making phone calls, canvassing, any help doing communications, writing newsletters. There's so many aspects that you can devote as much or as little time as you want in all these aspects, and all of our committees are really anxious to get more and more people involved. As Heather said, the more people are involved, the more people you talk to, the easier it is for people to come out and vote for Democrats. And I'll close on this. We are, in some ways, on our own. The Democratic National Committee doesn't give us any money. The state party gives us some computer support, doesn't give us any money. We do this on our own. So it's that you here in this room can make this happen this fall, which will lead us into 2018.
Thank you, David.
We've never had this many people show up to a Democratic Party event in Delaware County. And the reason that the number 600 is sort of important is David just mentioned how many committee people we already have elected and appointed. It's about 550. Now, I know there are some folks in this room who have been involved. There are leaders, there are committee people in this room. But for the most part, I mean, and I looked at every name on the list. For the most part, a lot of you, this is your first time here. And with the number of people in this room, we can effectively double the size of the Democratic Party in Delaware County. And here's why that's important. In 2015, what we would consider an off-year election, we had 3 county council seats up for election, as well as in 15 we had 3 county council seats, as well as 3 Supreme Court seats. Now, in 2015, our top vote-getting candidate lost by about 8,000 votes to the bottom vote-getting Republican, which it works out to about 18 votes per precinct. We lost by 18 votes per precinct. Think about the number of people, if you walk up and down your block, think about the number of people you could talk to in just one day, and the number of people that they could talk to in just one day. To give you some perspective, David mentioned how well Hillary Clinton did in Delaware County. She won by 66,000 votes, and that works out to be about 155 votes per precinct. So we know that the numbers are there. We know that if everybody gets involved, we can win these races. And getting involved doesn't necessarily mean knocking on doors every single Saturday or every single Sunday during 100-degree heat in the summer, although I can tell you from experience that it works. And it doesn't mean sitting 5 nights a week making phone calls to people who don't want to talk to you. And granted, I understand that some of these things can be intimidating. Walking up to a stranger's door is intimidating. Heather just told a story about how she got involved, and I remember the first race that she volunteered on. The campaign manager walked the first 15 doors with her. And we're never going to let people go out on their own and do this for the first time if they don't feel comfortable. Making calls can seem sort of uncomfortable, sort of annoying. You feel like you're inconveniencing people while they're sitting down to dinner, but they're effective. And if you get 10 people in a room making phone calls and there are snacks and maybe some drinks, it can be a fun time. It can be a fun social event. And it doesn't necessarily have to be 3 hours of phone call after phone call after phone call. You can come in and you can actually talk to people and meet people and have somewhat of a social interaction with folks, and you're all sort of doing things that weren't going to get done if you weren't there. So you're making progress regardless of how many calls you make, how many doors you knock. No amount is too little for us. But talking about the local elections for township commissioner, township supervisor, school board, the smallest things can help these races. These are not races where you have a budget for a campaign manager or you have a budget for tons of glossy mail pieces, but having a meet and greet, inviting your neighbors or your friends and family over for on a Sunday afternoon or an evening during the week, just to meet the candidate, can literally give the candidate 20 more people who are going to vote for them. And like I just said, if we lost by 18 votes per precinct, that's a win. It's like how you eat an elephant. You eat it one bite at a time. The numbers can be daunting. But really, I mean, a lot of the times, I know that folks, they sign up on the email lists for, the Clinton campaign or the Obama campaign, and they get tons of phone calls asking them to come vote and tons of emails asking them to give $27. And look, they wouldn't do it if it didn't work. They wouldn't do it if it didn't work. And the reason we know it works is that, the Republicans, we talked about how much they have control of. They have control of the state house. They have control of the state senate. And when there's a special election, like say when someone resigns midterm, the Speaker of the House gets to set the date of the election. He gets to set the date. And so what date do you think they're going to pick if they're trying to get a Republican elected in this county? They're going to pick August. And that's what they did in Leanne's election. And the reason that we know that all of these tactics work is that they tried to beat us with cynicism, and we beat them. And a lot of people in this room helped. So whenever you're going to get calls from your local organizers, you're going to get calls from your local committee chairs, you're going to get calls from your local candidates. You don't have to make a huge time commitment. You can do it day by day, time by time, and it'll make a huge difference. But anyway, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, panelists. So if you haven't already written down your question, please do so. I see Beth Aloy and Colleen Guiney sorting through questions now, so we'll get to those in a minute. We do have some questions that folks submitted ahead of time, so I'm going to start with those. So first question from somebody: I'd like to commit to getting at least 10 non-voting registered Democrats in my neighborhood out to vote. Joe told us that if we get 18 more votes per precinct, we can win these seats. David, for someone sitting in this audience who wants to figure out how to get involved, how do they figure out who those voters are? How do they know how to knock on the right doors?
So we have access in the county to something called the Voter Access Network. It's called VAN. It's a national database. It's all over the country. It's something that we get provided through the state party, and each committee person has an account that they can dial into this computer system, and it tells you every voter in the precinct, what their voter history is, when they voted, when they didn't vote, what their address is, who else lives in the house, their age, and we enter data into that. So if somebody had knocked on their door before, we can view that data in there. So the short answer is our Democratic Committee has access to that, and they can provide the list to you of the person, people on your street that you need to go talk to.
Okay, a follow-up question that we just got from somebody in the audience. So we're talking a lot about knocking on doors, and just to be clear, we're talking about knocking on doors because it's the number one thing we can do to get someone to come out to vote for our candidate. It's scrappy, it's grassroots, it's cheap, and it works. That's why we're talking about knocking on doors. So our person in the audience asked, does this also include nursing homes, knocking on doors of assisted living facilities or group homes? Can we get into the nursing homes in Delaware County, David?
Yes and no. So the larger continuing care communities like Amaris Grove actually have Democratic organizations in them. And they, depending on the rules of a particular facility, they can have meetings, they can invite you to meetings and things like that. The nursing homes themselves are a little bit more difficult. We do get in there for absentee ballots, and we do have a crew that goes in that can go around and make sure that people who need absentee ballots have absentee ballots. But you really can't, I don't think, campaign. Joe, may I?
Again, this gets back to the number of people in this room. If you know someone who is in a nursing home or know someone who's in a senior living community, and you know that person has a predisposition to be a Democrat, but they're not necessarily active, that's your in guy, or that's your in person. That's your inside person. They can go door to door in their community. They can go door to door down the hallway, and there are quote unquote rules against soliciting and things like that. This isn't soliciting. This is exercising free speech. But one of the things that we lack in our party is sort of the infrastructure to get into a lot of these places. So that's why the local committees, your individual committee people will count on folks who live in these communities to be their inside person, to go in and drop the literature off at people's doors and make sure they get out and vote, or make sure they fill out absentee ballots.
Thank you. And can you just tell us, follow-up, Joe, when someone's out knocking on doors, they've got a little spreadsheet, they're checking off information, what happens to that information afterwards, and how do we make sure that those people actually get contacted before Election Day?
So this is actually pretty fun. The same vote builder system or van that David was just mentioning can hold all of our voter contact data. So when you knock on a door or you make a phone call, the result is recorded in the system. So if you knock on someone's door and they say they're going to vote for your candidate, that gets recorded in the system. And then during the 4 days before Election Day, before and including Election Day, we perform what we call Get Out the Vote, or GOTV. And during GOTV, we go to all of the people who said they were going to vote for us and make sure that they go out and vote, or make sure that they filled out an absentee ballot. You can, in 2015, in August of 2015, when Leanne won, we were able to count the number of votes that we had. We were able to track the number of people who said they were going to vote for us and the number of people throughout the day who had voted for us. And we knew at 8 o'clock that we had won because we were able to get out our vote. So that data is incredibly important, and sort of the quality of that data is important as well. And that's why it's sort of a serious thing. You go out and you knock on a door, you want to check off the person that you talk to, and that's really it. You don't want to count too many people in the house.
Thank you, Joe. So Margot, a question for you. There's a number of folks in the audience who are here because they care about particular issues, and they want to know what's the most effective way for them to be communicating with and influencing their elected officials on the issues they care about. What works in your office? What catches you?
Well, personally, I listen to all of my constituents, but there's a collection of voices that you try to listen to because there's varied opinions within a district. And so I try to track, how many people are yay or nay on an issue. I come to the table with my own values and issues that are top priorities for me. And those were the issues that I communicated to my district during election cycles. And so I feel as though my values are aligned with the people that live in my district. And so, but there's always an issue that I may not have thought about that is important to people in the community. And so, like right now, people are not getting their unemployment benefits. So that's very important. So I can determine that this is a serious problem that I need to address back in Harrisburg by the volume of calls. So every person that calls, that reverberates in my mind and throughout my office and throughout my systems, that that doesn't just represent one person, that probably represents 10 people that are having a similar problem. So, and that's how I measure, and that's how I track, and that's how I activate solutions that I can determine to address those needs.
And folks, just so you know, those calls to elected officials, they matter. Congress, when they were back in session last month, were about to sweep through some ethics reforms, right? And these were not good ethics reforms. And people called and called and called and called, and the Republicans in Congress realized that people were watching, and they took it off the table. So that's just one instance of how your voices and the voices of people around the country have been able to actually change the minds of politicians. Keep it up. Keep it up. We need to hear from you.
I will say that I had a lot of help, starting with my husband. My spouse was very supportive of my running for office. In fact, I think he probably knocked on as many doors as I did because he liked saying, my wife is running for X, Y, and Z. And people were very responsive sometimes to him more than me. But one of the things that's really important, I have two small children, a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old. So when I was running, I had a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old or 8-year-old. And I had to rely on a lot of people for childcare. And one of the things, if you're not someone who likes to talk to voters, we've had this conversation in many campaign offices. If watching someone's children so that they can talk to voters is the thing that you can give, it's incredibly important. I made a commitment to give 10 hours a week to running for office. And some of you may think that's impossible for you right now, but others of you might think, I can probably carve out 10 hours a week. Some of those hours were at 11 o'clock at night when I was entering data. Some of them were sending emails to folks about various needs that I had. But I had a lot of help from the committee, the Upper Darby Committee, and Joe Corrigan helped me quite a bit. And just relying on people and asking for what you need. If you need money, you have to be comfortable asking for money. If you need someone to help watch your children, you have to be comfortable asking for that. But people came out of the woodwork to help me too. So that was really helpful. Like many of you, you might not know what you want to do, but you're interested in helping candidates. Everything that you can give them time or just even a call at night to say you're doing a good job was really helpful.
When I ran for office the first time, my son Wendell was 2 years old, and Colleen Guiney, who is collecting questions right now, literally came and watched my son so I could knock on doors to collect signatures to get on the ballot. So she's right behind me, hiding.
He's a really nice kid. He's a sweetheart.
And so my experience as well is that there is a sense of community in the Democratic Party here in Delaware County. In some places, there's even a sense of family. And if you're willing to step out and run, and you're running for something where you're a viable candidate, and it's a seat we can win, support will come around you. Sometimes support that you never even expected. So we've got a lot of great questions. The next up, so qualifications to run for office. David or Joe, maybe you could take this. Do you have to be a homeowner, or can you be a renter? Is there an age limit to run for these offices?
I think they abolished the property rights requirement about 150 years ago, but the answer is you have to be, the main qualification is residency, not home ownership. So you have to live, if you're going to run for a local office, it's usually 1 year prior to the election. You have to have been a resident of the district that you're running in. And that's sort of a general qualification. Other than that, you just have to be a registered voter in that district. So, and so when you're running in Upper Darby, you just have to live in Upper Darby. But if you're running for a ward seat, like the third ward in Upper Darby, you actually have to live in the third ward of Upper Darby for the requisite time period before the election. And those are really the only two qualifications, other than you work for the federal government or you work for a government job that has federal funds, you may or may not have what we call the Hatch Act requirement about engaging in political activity. So that's something you'd have to talk with, we could talk with you separately about, but that would be it.
Great. And Joe, a question for you. So we're talking a lot about county races, countywide races. So how does flipping that to Democrat help us get Trump voted out and help us flip congressional seats? Question from an audience member.
This is one of my favorite questions. So whoever wrote that for me, thank you. So the way that winning at the local and the countywide level helps us flip statewide seats or state house, state senate, congressional seats is pretty elementary. When you go to a community event, who are the people who are there? The people who are there are your township commissioner, they're your school board member, and they send out a newsletter every month or every quarter, and they get to go to the tree lighting or the menorah lighting, or they get to be recognized at the school board meeting to speak. And just that level of exposure puts them a leg up on people who aren't. And so when we have folks on county council, or when we have folks at the township level, for instance, are there people here from Springfield? I know there are people here from, okay. So this past election cycle, there was a community day in Springfield. Now, community day, you would think, is sort of a bipartisan, nonpartisan civic event. But in reality, it's civic or community for Republicans and not for Democrats. If you're a Democrat running for office, you'd better not show up to a community event wearing a button for your candidacy, or you will be accused of politicking and thrown out. So the more we change these township councils, the more we change these school boards, the more we change the county council seats, the more opportunities Democrats will have to show their faces in public and be recognized by their neighbors and their community members as leaders in the community.
Thank you. So an interesting question from an audience member, and I think we should be provocative here. So this person has been following the news and knows that the Delaware County Republican chairman, Andy Riley, was a Trump elector who proudly and loudly voted for Trump in the Electoral College. How does that give us an opportunity to activate people who don't normally vote in local elections to come out in 2017 to vote for Democrats? Who wants to take that one?
I'll take it. I am all about flipping Republican seats. And so I think that what's really, really important about this gathering is that we recognize that there are people who think like us, who are willing to get involved. And we know already that, that Hillary Clinton overwhelmingly won Delaware County. And so it really is a matter of what we've been saying, talking to your neighbors, finding out who the Democrats are in your area, in your precinct, and encouraging them to vote. And even those can be small social gatherings that we've been talking about, meet and greets. They might not be aware of this, and start just telling them, the Republican chair is a Trump elector. Did you know that? How do you feel about that? Is that outrageous to you as it is to me? Well, we need you to come out and vote. I mean, these are your talking points about what you're passionate about. And I think that if we can get this group of folks that came out tonight to begin to talk to their neighbors, and I'm talking close by, block by block, in the immediate 4 block surrounding area, just find out who the Democrats are. You can get those lists from your committee and begin to talk about those issues that you're most passionate about. One thing I learned from the Obama campaign is talk about what is most important to you about my candidacy. So what's most important to you is important, and what you will sell the best. And so if it's Andy Riley being an elector, then talk about that and find like-minded people and get those people to the polls in 2017. One last thing I want to say. From leading up to Ronald Reagan's election and post-Ronald Reagan's election, the Republican National Party built a grassroots base, committee by committee, block by block, local elected official by local elected official. And that is what is still in place today as an infrastructure for the Republican Party. We have not been as successful in creating that kind of infrastructure, and that's where you come in. So that's why there's 4 or 5 people at every polling place, the gauntlet, because those are people that are involved with the Republican Party, and we need that kind of grassroots support at every precinct in Delaware County, and you're a part of that team.
I love that question because it's one of the things that always drives me crazy about local elections here. Andy Riley and all the others can be staunch Trump supporters and out there for the Republican national candidates and Pat Meehan. When it comes to local elections, their position, that doesn't matter. We run a good county government here. The people who are voting on the county level, they don't care about those national issues when we come to local issues. And our job, and we need to do better at it, is starting to make some of those connections. For example, people care about health care in this country. We know that. Do you know that Delaware County has no county health department? We are the only large county in this state that has no county health department. And we need to start bringing those kinds of issues together, the national and the local issues, to make people understand that there is a connection in the political philosophy, that when you support Trump and you want to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, you're also not going to support a county health department. And that's just one example. Because the Republicans think it's going to raise taxes too much and we don't need one. And, you know, we can have that conversation afterwards, but there are just so many things that can't happen in the county for health care in terms of federal grants because you need a health department to be a recipient of those grants. But they have resisted it for well over 10 years now.
So let's talk, there's a bunch of questions about gerrymandering. So we can let's dive a little bit deeper on that issue. I know that where I live in Swarthmore used to be in the 7th Congressional District, and then after 2010, when Brian Lentz was the Democratic candidate, somehow we got cut out in the next redistricting, and now Bob Brady is my congressman, and I'm in the same congressional district as the Liberty Bell. So can we talk a little bit, does it make sense? Swarthmore, Nether Providence, too many Democrats, the Liberty Bell is in our congressional district. So let's dive deeper, gerrymandering. How has it happened and what can we do about it?
So redistricting is controlled by the state legislature. And I'm sure you've all heard the statistics. Over the last 8 years, across the country, we've lost over 1,000 Democratic state legislatures. In Pennsylvania, we have lost dozens of Democratic state legislators. We're now down to 17 Democratic state senators out of 50, and 81 representatives out of 203. So there are two different redistricting things. Congressional redistricting is vested solely in the state legislature, solely in the state legislature. So the state legislature, House and Senate get together, they come up with a plan, and they pass it, and that's it. So until we change the state legislature, it can't happen. As I mentioned earlier, the state House and Senate redistricting is governed by this commission. Now, in 2015, we elected a majority of our Supreme Court as Democrats. We need to keep that majority going forward to the census, and then we will be able to appoint the Democratic justices. And by the way, they all mentioned this issue as one of the reasons we need a Democratic Supreme Court. So these justices are aware of their responsibility to pick the right person to be the tie-breaking vote to chair the reapportionment panel. But that reapportionment panel was solidly Republican. And in fact, when they did the reapportionment for the State House, the original plan that came down that Judge McEwen had actually was so bad that the Republican Supreme Court came back and declared it unconstitutional. It actually took the small borough of Swarthmore and split it into 2 different legislative districts and did that all over the county. And we were one of the lead examples plaintiffs in that case to get rid of that. They came back with a better plan, but it's still not a great plan. And it's really, we have 6 out of our 11 state reps are Democrat. It should be more like 10 out of 11 of our state reps should be Democrat. And part of that is the gerrymander. But that's how it happened. It happens because we need to elect people to the State House and State Senate. We need to elect majorities there so we can control the redistricting. And the Republicans did a brilliant job over the last 15 years of capturing their state houses and being in control in 2011 when the redistricting started.
So there's a lot of questions here about voter intimidation, voter fraud. Someone shared the story of wearing a Hillary pen to the polls with their children who were told they had to remove the button before they went into the polling booths. Not actually a law, but I personally witnessed Republican elected officials trying to intimidate people into taking their voters into taking their gear off before they went into the election until we called the lawyer to explain to them what the law actually said about that issue. And then other questions from folks who are legitimately concerned about the claims of illegal votes and voter fraud that we've heard from the White House recently, and fear that this could actually be leverage for voter suppression. So can we talk a little bit more about voter suppression? What can we legally do on this issue? What are we doing now, and what's the grounds for change? And anyone who wants to take that one.
Well, yeah, well, there are so many forms of voter suppression in the county that can happen. I think that, to be honest, in Delaware County, in terms of actual suppression of the vote, as opposed to a little intimidation, people being prevented from voting, that almost never occurs. We have really worked hard over the last 10 years to have a team of lawyers out there, and in many, many areas, we have really done okay. There are still areas in this county where people try to prevent people from voting, but we're pretty much on the spot there. And the statistics, and you've seen the news reports, there's just no evidence of voter fraud out there. The most important thing is to really clamp down on what we call the gauntlet. We still have places in Delaware County where if you're a Democrat and there haven't been Democrats working the polls, they will literally tell you to go home. You're not allowed to stand here. You're not allowed to be here. And that's when you get on the phone to our county headquarters on election day and we send a lawyer out there. And if we have to go to court, we go to court. And we have been to court and we've been successful in court. Voters can wear buttons inside the polls. And lots of times, again, we come back to the judges and inspector of elections. The initial decision about what can go on in a polling place. So for example, how far do people have to stand from the door of the polling place before they talk to voters? That decision is made by the judge of election. And it's the judge of election's job to keep those doorways clear and to make sure the process inside the polling place goes smoothly. And lots of the Republican judges don't get the memo. They don't hear that what really can go on the polls, or they deny it, and that's where the problem can occur. So even if the judge is wrong, if we have an inspector there, another poll, they can be a check and they can get on the phone and call us and say the judge doesn't know what he's doing in this case.
And so this is another place for, I know there's so many people here who are looking for how to get involved. If you are a lawyer, or if you have a family member who's a lawyer, or a friend who's a lawyer, or if you hang out with lawyers occasionally, we need every lawyer we can get on the ground here in Delaware County on primary day and then especially on general election day. I have personally witnessed police officers next to family members of candidates next to voting booths, illegal. I've witnessed folks starting to open absentee ballots before the polls closed. This recent election, witnessed a police car pulling up and literally blocking the entrance to for voters to come in until the Republican committee people realized I was still there, and the police officer left before the lawyers could get there. But this is what we're up against. And so lawyers, we will train you if you've never done this before. There's a boiler room. It's a very coordinated strategy, but there's a real need for lawyers on the ground here on Election Day.
And I have one thing I want to add to this.
Yep.
We, as a party, we do not stop people from voting. We do not draw lines that are unfair. There are very clear lines that as Democrats and as ethical people, we do not cross. If you have to keep people from voting in order to win, to quote one of our state senators, your ideas suck. So that means that we have to work harder than that, especially in a year like 2010. There was a lot of election fatigue. The Obama campaign was a huge campaign. It was a tough-fought primary followed by an even tougher-fought general election. So by the time 2010 came around, nobody wanted to vote. The turnout for Republicans in 2010 was incredible. And they knew, the Koch brothers knew, the National Republican Party knew, that if they were to just push really hard in 2010, they could win these state legislatures. They could win these governor's mansions. And they could change the maps once the census was over. And they did, and that's where we are. But from here on, we have to work harder than them because we are at a disadvantage. We are ethical. And it's hard. It's hard to fight against them when they will stop at nothing to win. So that's why we need you.
So there's a number of questions about state issues and the state legislature. So Margot, this question will send to you, the strategy for changing the state legislature. Right now, you and I are 2 of 81 against 203. The Senate, with the seats that we lost back in November, the Senate can actually override the governor's veto. This is a problem because there's a lot of really bad legislation that we stopped last cycle because Tom Wolf came out and was bold with his veto pen and stopped bad laws. The Senate can no longer do that. The House is the last hope, and these 81 Democrats standing together with the governor to stop things like horrible anti-choice legislation, rolling back public education, or the rights of workers to organize, or doing devastating things to our environment. So Margot, can you tell us what's the strategy for changing the makeup of the state legislature?
When I came in 2010, of course, it was a tsunami for the Republicans against the Democrats, and Barack Obama called it a shellacking. in 2010. And so we went from the majority to the minority. Democrats had 103 seats before the 2010 election. It dropped down to 92, 91, fluctuated between 91 and 92 that year based on special elections. So we're basically at 92. We set a strategy to pick up seats, but there was not a real clear strategy, to be honest with you. I think the strategy that we're creating tonight is better than what was created in 2010, 2011. Because one of the mistakes I think that we made, the National Party made, and the local party also made, I'm just going to be frank, 'cause I don't know how to be anything else. One of the mistakes we made in 2010 is locally we followed the national messaging, and the national messaging was off. And so the nation went, so it was a sweep. And again, in this year, the national messaging wasn't as targeted to the widest group of people that it could have been targeted to. And so many of us in the legislature have been a strong proponent of better messaging, more localized messaging, not just following the national trend, because all politics is local. And wins begat wins. So going from 92, we went down to 84, then we went down to where we are now at 81. So their wins is producing other wins. What we need to do in 2017 is win local elections. In 2017, everybody's talking about 2018. In 2017, we need to win local elections. Because not only does that give us boots on the ground, I can tell you, no Republican is coming in the 164th and taking territory. And everybody knows that. So we need to have territory, that we have an army of folks that say, no, this is Democratic ground. And so I don't care who the candidate is, this is Democratic ground. And we have taken this ground by hard grassroots organizing. That is the only way we're going to be ready for 2018, to take back Congress, to get Pat Meehan out, because all up and down his gerrymandered district, and I don't care how gerrymandered it is, if we do what we need to do, because Barack Obama took that territory in 2008, if we get Democrats out and we have taken territories this year, we can get rid of Pat Meehan in 2018. And then finally, in 2019, we do it again. We take more territory. And then 2020, Trump is out of here. If that gives you goosebumps, it gives me goosebumps. Yes, let's get this done.
Amen. We have time for a couple more questions because we have another way for you to plug in and get engaged. So we're going to take just a couple more. And as you can see, there's lots of questions this evening. So I'm going to make sure that our county party executive director, who we'll hear from in just a couple minutes, gets all of these. And some of them we may be able to answer on the website or through social media, because there's great questions. And thank you, everybody, again, who's taken the time to put their questions on the table. Heather, a question for you. So there's a lot of folks here with zero political experience. They want to know how to get involved and how they can even figure out how they can be most effective. Where should they start?
Oh, boy. Leanne's asking me that question because I'm probably the newest member to politics up here. And I was just a mom and a teacher who cared about the same kinds of things that you care about. I first got involved by finding a candidate. Sometimes it's a person that you know, sometimes it's a person that you found that I got involved with, who brought me into the Democratic committee. But then I have used my relationships with my friends to get other people involved, and I have held petition parties at my house where candidates come over and they just need people to sign their petition who live in my community. It's a lot nicer to do it in your living room than door to door in February. I've held picnics at my house to meet and greet candidates. None of this really cost me much money. People just potlucked it and brought some stuff. And I like to have fun. I don't like to just, sit in my room and make calls. In fact, if I had to sit in my room and make calls, I wouldn't do it. But I do like to invite my friends over to do call parties. Oh my gosh, I sound like such a geek. But I do like to have my friends over. And I will supply the wine, and we often have competitions. Everybody puts in $1 at the beginning, and whoever had the worst call gets the pot. And so we compete at the end, who got hung up on, who got yelled at. And so it makes some of the difficulty or the stuff you're nervous about, it makes it more fun. And you also, so I guess the moral of that is bring your friends in, because many of you have friends who are just as upset as you are at what's happening. And I found that just, talking to a candidate, talking to the party, you can find the, all of these local committees, you can find them through the delcodems.com website. So if you haven't met your chair, although, where are the chairs here? Can someone, if you're a chair of your party, can you raise your hand? All right, so look around and you'll see your local chairs. Reach out to them. They know all the Democrats in your community. They've probably talked to every single one of them at some point. So reach out to them and ask them what they need. And find a way just to make it fun for yourself. Use what you're good at and what's fun for you, and you'll find a way to get into the process.
So there's a number of questions about money, and I want to make sure that we cover that tonight too, because the reality is that the Republicans are incredibly well funded. There are Republican committees at the local level that have $500,000 cash on hand. And so the reality is, while we have to spend a lot of time finding folks who will support our campaign, there's no ready-made bank for Democratic candidates in Delaware County that just spits out money. You have to work hard to get it. We're up against a lot of money. So someone wants to know, if I want to donate my money to have an impact, where can I send it?
That's easy. You go online to www.delcodems.com to the contribute button, and you hit contribute. And most of the local committees have websites. We are, I know we have a ways to go, but we are into the digital age in the Delaware County Democratic Party, and we have a pretty good digital operation. But that's the most fundamental place to go is Delco Dems. Our local committees need it. Our local candidates will also have their own website shortly where you can donate. And don't ever think that $3 or $5 doesn't make a difference, because it does. Not everybody, we do have fundraising programs here. We have our fundraising dinner and events, and we have a $1,000 a year club that we have. But we also have people who agree to donate $5 a month, $10 a month to the Democratic Party. When we send out an email blast and we ask, we start out with the big number, give us $25 or $50. If you want to send $5, send $5, because it all adds up, and everything makes a difference in these local campaigns at the county level as well as the municipal level. We're not spending tens of thousands of dollars electing a borough council member. But we are spending a couple $1,000s, and frankly, where does the money go? It goes to postage. I mean, it's very simple. You have to have contact with people. You have to print up some lawn signs. We run basic. We don't have to compete at the same level, dollar for dollar, with the Republicans. We can, but we find we spend our money much more effectively, and it is so every dollar does count. And anything anybody wants to do at any time, to contribute whatever amount of money, it's critical.
So as you can see, there's a camera crew here and there's a sound crew here, and thanks to Maureen McKenna, who I met over the phone not 2 days ago, who knew about this event and said, how can I help? This is what I do for a living. Can I put together a crew to come videotape it? So thank you. So we are going to be putting this together to get it up on our YouTube channel, and and send it out via email. All of you, when you signed up, you gave an email address. It'll come to you via email. We're going to put together sort of a highlights of the things that were talked about here tonight and the questions that we didn't get to, and get them out to everybody on an email in the coming days. I think it's pretty clear that we have to continue to organize like this. We have to continue to have similar meetings like this. Folks are organizing in tons of different ways. They're protesting, they're staging, they're organizing around the ACA, they're organizing around the cabinet appointments. We very much plan to do this in the near future. And I think that some of the local chairs will be hosting local events as well. So get involved at that level. But look, we're at a critical mass. I think that we're going to continue to have events like this to come together and talk about how we can effectively organize and move our issues forward.
So I want you to go ahead and grab another Post-it. Put your hand up if you need one, and we'll make sure you get those. And I want you to think about this, and write down one action you're going to take after tonight. Donate $5. Sign up to collect signatures for our county council candidates. Whatever it is, write down one action. So just take a minute to do that.
And if anyone drives a Nissan and lost their key fob, please come to the front of the room. Check your pockets.
One tangible action that you can take after this evening.
Oh, it's your key.
And hold on to that Post-it. We're going to tell you in just a minute. So folks, before we wrap up, first of all, there are some engagement tables in the hallway. We're going to tell you about those just in a minute. We're also going to ask you to take your 2 Post-its and place them in a particular area. We're collecting those stories of why you came, and we're collecting the stories of what action you're going to take next. But before we do that, sometimes there's a perception that the Delaware County Democratic Party has a whole team of staff. And the reality is we are a grassroots, scrappy volunteer organization. But I'm proud to call to the stage our new, not so new to the party, but new in this role, Executive Director, Shelley Rahman. Who's been working on behalf of Democratic candidates as a volunteer for at least 15 years. And is helping to get us organized. So Shelley's going to tell us about what's next this evening and what's next with engagement. But thanks again, folks. Thanks for coming out tonight. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for helping us flip seats in 2017. Shelley.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Wow. Do you know, I'm just like one of you. Many of you are here today, maybe the first time. And this job is also very new to me. And the reason I took the job, I have to share, because you all wrote why you are here today. So I'm just taking 1 minute, okay, Joe? Not a whole lot. Yeah. All this time I was involved. Many of you may know in Delaware County. But I was mostly involved in federal election. Obvious reason, it's more sexy. Who wants to work with David Lando? I was with Obama. I was delegate twice. Obama hugged me, kissed me. Hillary, way more. So, but then what happened? November 8th, when I got up on November 9th, whole world changed. And then I started thinking, I worked so hard, I did that, but That's when it struck me that I didn't work at a local level as much I should have done. So our foundation is cracked. We want to build this skyscraper high rise with Hillary Clinton or whoever, but we don't have a foundation. So that's when I started thinking what to do, and I was very fortunate, the position was open. So I called David and asked. David was shocked. So I took it. So here I am. So thank you. And so my focus is the local election. So I went, but there are more to the story. I went to the office. Have you seen the office, how skimpy, crappy looking it is? Have you ever seen it? And David says, you have an office, Shelley. Oh, you do not know? It's 104 Gale Street. 104, yeah, in Media. You must visit me. And I promise I will clean it before you give me a call. Then I start thinking, is the Republican office same way? Then I thought, of course not. Their office is all over. The courthouse, the county office, many of the township office, the school, you name it. And I have this tiny, weeny office, okay. Then I thought, since you are all here, you are not going away. This is not your first event. There will be many events. I thought the whole county will be my office. Okay? So we will be meeting, socializing, doing everything we have to win. Don't rely on the candidate. There is one person. They cannot do anything. They have a life. So don't think David is going to do. No, he has other job to do. Don't think they do, because they have to run Harrisburg. We don't want them to campaign. So we are going to get the vote. You are with me? Okay. Okay. So for doing that, two things. When we are done, when you go out, on the left hand, on the wall, you will see a lot of paper hanging. Put your sticker, the one which says why you are here today. And then on the right, when you go, Jim Butt is there. He will direct. There is a place, and there's 7 tables, I think, and what you want to do. And there is a place to put the sticker. Please do that. And your municipality leaders will be also available outside to connect. But we have a request, because we are so many people, the people who are already working, everybody knows you, the committee people, your chairperson doesn't want to see you. Trust me, they do not want to, okay. So please go home. Anybody from Montgomery County, Philadelphia, as a visitor, we love you. But you can go home too.
Love it, Shelley.
Yes. So all the new people, stay, talk to your leaders. Leaders have signs. They will find you. And we will talk about how to get connected. And I will be in the office Monday to Friday from 10 to 5. Please stop by. I'm the only person there, okay, to say hello. And I put also a calendar if anybody wants to come and help me, making phone calls or just answering the phone, because I found out if I answer the phone, I cannot do the work. So I can use some help. So you can sign up for that also. Thank you very much, and I look forward to work with you all. Thanks. You don't want everyone to go. No, that's right. Wait a second. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, we don't want the veterans to go away yet. Sorry, Shelley, we love them too much. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So here's the thing. Truly, if you're not from Delaware County and you want to assist Delaware County, we are having 7 tables of interest areas. You're welcome to help us. Okay, they are things like public relations, technology, fundraising, election day, greeting. If you live in a ward in Philadelphia that has a non-contested election, you want to come out here and help us greet voters, you're allowed to do that. And so what we were saying, what Shelley was saying is if you're someone who knows your chair by name, you don't need to stay in the room for a minute. But first what I want to do is all the sign-in helpers, those of you who volunteered tonight at tables, can you raise your hands? How many of you guys are left here? Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you. I would like all of you now to stand and go out and help Jim man those 7 tables. So you guys have another job. Out you go. All right. Now the next group of people that I want, and Jim Butt's right there. So out you go and over that way. We're going to give them a minute to get settled at their 7 tables. All right, now everyone else who knows who your chair is, I want you to stand in your seat. Don't go anywhere yet, just stand in your seat. If you've ever met the chair of your party in your town, Upper Darby, Brookhaven, Marple, Newtown, okay, just stand in your seat. Okay, now. Okay, and I see my neighbor, Leslie, thank you for standing. Now, okay, ready? If you are absolutely, fully, maximally engaged and do not have 1 more minute, you can go out in the parking lot and schmooze, okay? If you feel that there is a talent that has not yet been tapped by the Delaware County Democratic Party that you would like to offer, Jim is the chair of the Volunteer Recruitment, Training, and Support Committee. He needs you at those 7 tables to indicate, I'm a techie, I'm a talker, I want to do house parties. Go up and down. Those tables include I will cover polls, I will do canvassing, etc. If you can't stay tonight and you just want to go home, there's also a paper that looks like this. Grab it, and it's got emails on it that you can contact with your skill base. Okay, does anyone have any questions? All you veterans out here, does anyone have a question? Yes, please, if you have not done so, the DeVos nomination needs 1 more vote. If you have not called Pat Toomey, call him. Oh, it's done? All right, never mind. All right, never mind. Old news. Sorry about that. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so all you veterans, very happily, I want you to go out and put up your stickies. And if you forget to put your sticky up and you leave it on the table, we'll still take it. Everybody else stay here.